NBA All-Star Weekend is usually associated with the spectacle of the greatest star power concentrated in one city and sharing the joy of the game by having as much fun as possible. But the three-point contest gives us a chance to study the mechanics of some of the best shooters on the planet and gain more insight into how they do it. So if you're a coach whose team struggles to shoot, or a player looking to unlock your full potential, let's explore frame by frame how these guys are doing it and uncover the real secrets to elite basketball shooting. Taking balls off a rack already made this contest decidedly ungamelike, and normally a 30-footer like this would be taken off the dribble. But let's get to the first contestant, the Hawks' Trae Young, who's only shooting 37% from three, but thrills the crowd with his incredible long range. The ball starts at his waist, then gets to a set point in front of his face. It's only there for about 2 frames before his elbow is straightening. His initial elbow bend is way less than 90 degrees, and then it snaps straight on the release. For the most part, he'll hold that follow through once it snaps. Notice how the offhand thumb tucks inside the palm, imparting some influence on the ball as a power mechanism. He also has a nice turn where you can see his body is facing the Mountain Dew sign in the background, enabling proper alignment of his shooting hip and elbow to the rim. When he's consistent with his elbow snap, the ball has the best chance of going in. You can see on this one, he snaps the elbow but quickly bends it again, creating a miscalibration of the power. Trae isn't consistent with where his eyes go after release. Some shots, he stays on the rim the whole way. Others, he follows the ball. I'd argue that he should do the same thing all the time, and I'd go even a step further and say he should follow the ball with his eyes every time. From the right corner, you can see his alignment even better, turned to about 10 o'clock, and because he took too much time earlier, he had to heave the last couple and his mechanics broke down. And I'm sure he knows he's not advancing with a score less than 20. Next up is Devonte Graham, who has burst onto the scene as a second-year player, currently hitting 37% of his over 9 attempts per game. You can see right away that he follows the ball with his eyes and was clearly nervous as he couldn't calibrate distance with the air ball to start, then letting the ball drift to the right pretty extremely. Notice how he loads at the waist with his elbow pointing outwards. His forearm then rotates upwards as the arm swings up into the shot, enabling the hand to get under the ball and then release it. Also notice how he generates a little extra rhythm by lowering his center of gravity after he gathers the ball from the rack, almost simulating a hop into the shot. It's pretty difficult to generate rhythm from a standstill like this, so it's a good method to keep the shot effortless while having enough power. In fact, on the second do shot, he lifts both feet in the air in a hop motion to get a little extra power, and boom, the ball goes in. Graham's elbow doesn't really snap cleanly on the release. There's a little rebound immediately where it straightens for 1 frame before stiffening and bending again. He's been trained to hold the ideal follow-through, but his elbow bends a little before he then tries to get it straight again. His arc might be slightly higher than 45 degrees, and I believe that the ideal arc should be closer to 50 than 45. He timed his shots better than Young, but an 18 ain't gonna cut it against the top of the top shooters out there. Duncan Robinson is another newcomer and is a key component to the Heat's success, scorching the Nets at almost 44% on over 8 attempts per game. And he started out like he was in it to win it, but got the case of the in and outs. He's another guy who snaps the elbow straight and then it quickly bends again on the follow-through. To me, the snap to straight is the most important part, and bending it immediately after as part of energy absorption is fine. While his right foot is pretty close to pointing directly at the basket, his right knee collapses into his left knee because his body is begging for proper alignment that simply turning his feet would give him. Here's a good shot of his shooting hand on the side of the ball, and while he's bringing it up, his wrist rotates to get the hand underneath the ball. His offhand flies off the ball to the side. I don't see that very often. He got hot on the last rack as everything started synchronizing properly, but again, less than 20, you're gonna be a spectator. We've got a former winner in Devin Booker up next, and he's got some interesting things going on with his shot. He follows the ball with his eyes on every shot. He's also got an extremely consistent elbow snap. It's smooth, stays there for a beat on the follow-through, and it helps with left-right accuracy. Notice how he's just about 10 toes pointing to the rim, the old school squared up, but brings the ball up on the left side of his body before releasing it from the midline of his body. This looping motion could explain why he's never shot more than 38% from 3 and is a career 36% shooter. The ball traces an arc on the way up, and under pressure situations could cause the ball to drift primarily to his right. On the do ball, he gets his feet into a turn where his toes are pointing to 10 o'clock and it drops clean. I think the best part of his shot is the smooth snap of the elbow and wrist, with a little bit of floppiness of the wrist after it snaps. It also looks like he's touching his thumb to his fingers after the gooseneck release, his way of ensuring the wrist doesn't rotate inward, and that, my friends, is how you advance to the next round. Let's turn to Group 2, where Buddy Hield makes his first appearance. Normally well above 40%, this year he's dipped to 38.5%, but since Christmas he's over 42%. One thing we can see is how his offhand is almost on top of the ball, then opening up the gate with some wrist rotation and thumb movement on the release. Buddy has a really good turn with his feet. You can see them pointing to the left corner. His elbow snaps almost straight, but then quickly recoils to bent, and his shooting hand comes almost to touching his left hand. Once the ball starts moving up, it doesn't stop until it is out of his hands on the way to the basket. Buddy follows the ball with his eyes after release. The ball goes right in front of his face, almost hitting his forehead. The elbow bend is way less than 90 degrees, and that is how you end around Mr. Hield. Davis Bertans has been unleashed in Washington, nailing over 42% of his threes on over 8 attempts per game, and he was my dark horse to win the whole thing. He's got a much more classic throwback jump shot where his set point is above his eyebrow ridge. The elbow bend is pretty close to 90 degrees. He stares only at the rim, and check how his left arm straightens on the release as well. The left wrist pronates forward and the thumb imparts no impact on the ball. He releases the ball on the right side of his body, and the ball stays in a perfect vertical plane all the way through the shot. While his feet are not pointing square to the rim, he does get in-air rotation. It's that kind of freedom that allows for a smooth shot. He likes to start with his hand right on top of the ball, and the wrist flexes back early before the arms swing up into the shot. This early wrist preparation is a bit unusual. Interestingly, he got hot on the right wing even though his elbow does recoil into a bend immediately after the snap. He finishes this round off really strong, and it was even impressive to me that he fumbled the gather on the money ball and still hit that shot with a swish. The hometown hero Zach LaVine is up next, and he's been solid this year at 38.5% on almost 8 a game. The first thing I noticed was how he used his body to generate rhythm. He gathers, raises his center of mass, then begins the bending of his legs before the arms start moving up into the shot. He has a two-motion shot as the ball pauses just above his eyebrow ridge before the release. He's also a thumber, as the left thumb imparts force on the release, and that's okay, plenty of great shooters do this. With LaVine's wrist preparation, you can see his wrist is not flexed while it's gathering the ball, and only flexes back while the arms are moving up into the shot. This rhythmic motion allows for a fluid release that can maximize energy flow and timing from the ground up. While he finishes strong by running the final rack, his money ball rack was at the top of the key, which is curious to me since I think you'd want this short corner shot to be where you get the most points. And now the reigning champ Joe Harris, who's cooled down this year to a mortal 41% after hitting 47% last year. First thing I noticed, he started his knee bend before the ball is even above waist level. This ensures optimal energy transfer from the jump shot into the shot. He's got the highest release point we've seen so far, almost above his head, and it's as close to a two-motion shot as you can get with the ball pausing there for a few frames. His elbow and wrist snap might be the smoothest in the league, effortless and consistent every time. He likes to have his hand on the side of the ball and it stays there, with the elbow on the outside of the ball until the release, where the hand finally gets underneath the ball and the elbow snaps. He releases at the very top of his jump, relying on his legs more because of the two-motion shot, and this could lead to fatigue on the last rack. He had a shot at staying alive, but missed the first 3 shots due to power calibration issues. And that was all she wrote for last year's champion. Stay tuned later today for part 2 as I go through the final round between Bertans, Booker, and Hield, offering even more insights into their mechanics and what makes them so special. As part of my monthly membership, you can get access to my shooting system, enabling you to teach the modern jump shot from the ground up. Click on the link below for more information.